World War II arrived at the high water mark of the big gun battleship. Nations had poured vast sums into these floating fortresses, each one bristling with rifles as long as a boxcar and armored belts meant to shrug off anything short of a direct hit from the gods. In the Atlantic and the Pacific alike, a capital ship's presence could still force an enemy to change its plans, and for a brief moment the battleship seemed destined to decide the fate of oceans. Yet, even as these steel giants prowled the seas, the carrier was stealing the spotlight. The air duels at places like Midway proved that aircraft could sink a battle wagon long before its lookouts spotted the foe, and radio reports of dive bombers scoring hits on decks miles away signaled a new era. Still, through 1945 the battleship remained a valuable tool. Its guns flattened shore defenses from Normandy to Okinawa. Its flak batteries guarded carrier groups against air attack, and its thick armor let it soak up punishment that would have crippled lighter ships. In ranking the 5 most impressive battleships of the war, I looked at everything that mattered to a sailor or an admiral in 1944. Main battery punch had to be balanced by armor strong enough to keep the magazines dry. Speed and range determined whether a ship could chase or escape, and real-world combat records revealed which designs actually worked when shells and torpedoes started flying. Survivability, versatility, and overall design balance round out the picture. With that yardstick in hand, let us count down from number 5 to number 1 and see which battle wagons truly earned their legends. Number 5, the FS Richelieu from France. Richelieu was France's answer to the treaty limits that shaped battleship design in the late 1930s. She carried 8 15-inch guns in 2 quadruple turrets parked side by side on the bow, a layout that kept her citadel short and allowed more weight for protection and machinery. Her belt armor was over a foot thick, her turret faces were 17 inches of steel, and she could sprint at about 30 knots, which was as quick as any contemporary capital ship. Thanks to diesel-powered auxiliaries and a sleek hull, she could cross more than 9,000 nautical miles without refueling, giving France a true blue-water battleship. Fate threw Richelieu straight into action before she was fully worked up. When Germany overran France in June of 1940, she dashed south to Dakar to stay out of Axis hands. 2 months later, the British arrived with the battlecruiser HMS Barham and tried to seize or sink her. Richelieu's forward turrets spoke first, and 2 shells struck Barham, but failed to explode, cracking plating and causing minor flooding. Coastal batteries, manned by French sailors, added to the incoming fire, and the Allied squadron eventually broke off. The victory was not without cost. Earlier airstrikes by Swordfish torpedo bombers from HMS Hermes had slammed a torpedo into Richelieu's starboard quarter and twisted one propeller shaft, leaving her semi-immobile for months. She served as a floating gun battery until late 1943, when she limped across the Atlantic for a complete refit in New York. American yards replaced her fire control gear, upgraded her anti-aircraft battery, and restored full power. Back at sea with the British Eastern Fleet in 1944, Richelieu shelled Japanese positions during the raids on Sabang and Car Nicobar, while her gunners knocked down prowling aircraft. She screened carriers, bombarded shore targets, and steamed through monsoon seas without serious mishap. When the war ended, she was one of the few European battleships to see combat on 3 oceans and emerge intact, a testament to a clever design and a charmed service life. Number 4, the USS South Dakota, BB-57. The first of her name in the United States Navy, South Dakota was conceived as a compact bruiser that could match any enemy round for round while still squeezing under the old treaty tonnage cap. She packed 9 16-inch guns in 3 triple turrets, wore more than 12 inches of belt armor backed by a dense deck and turret face, and could keep pace with the fast carriers at roughly 27 knots. Inside the cramped hull, designers crammed cutting-edge radar and a formidable dual-purpose secondary battery, creating a ship that looked squat beside the long-hulled North Carolina, yet hit just as hard and shrugged off blows even better. Battleship's trial by fire came on the night of 13 of November 1942 during the desperate fight off Guadalcanal. After earlier anti-aircraft heroics at the Battle of Santa Cruz, South Dakota sailed straight into darkness with USS Washington and blundered into a melee among burning destroyers. Japanese searchlights stabbed across the water, and for several chaotic minutes, she became the focus of every heavy gun in Vice Admiral Kondo's force. 26 projectiles, ranging from 5-inch to 14-inch, punched and gouged her hull, knocking out radios and radar but failing to penetrate her vitals. Even crippled, she drew fire away from Washington, whose own gunnery then doomed the Japanese battleship Kirishima. Repairs were swift, and South Dakota returned to service in time to hammer shore positions during the invasion of Tinian and Palau. She spent the rest of the war screening carriers, firing night bombardments, and riding out typhoons. No other battleship of her size demonstrated the same blend of brutal resilience and modern electronics so early in the Pacific Campaign. Although cramped quarters limited later refits, and her shorter 45 caliber guns could not match the range of newer American designs, South Dakota's record of absorbing punishment and swatting down aircraft secures her place at number 4 on this list. Number 3, KMS Bismarck. Germany laid down Bismarck to break British naval supremacy with a ship that combined high speed, powerful guns, and thick armor in a single, rugged package. She displaced more than 50,000 tons fully loaded, and carried 8 15-inch rifles that could throw steel across 20 miles. Her main belt reached 12.5 inches of Krupp cemented armor, and her turret faces were even thicker, while a carefully flared bow and fine lines let her sprint at 30 knots through the rough Atlantic swell without shipping green water. Optical rangefinders, redundant fire control stations, and meticulous gunnery drills gave her crew confidence that every first salvo would land close. Bismarck's maiden combat cruise in May of 1941 became the most famous warship hunt in history. Slipping through the Denmark Strait with the heavy cruiser Prince Eugen, she encountered the British battlecruiser Hood and the new battleship Prince of Wales at dawn on 24 of May. After only 8 minutes of trading broadsides, one of Bismarck's 15-inch shells plunged into the Hood's magazines and detonated the British flagship in a single catastrophic flash that left just 3 survivors. Prince of Wales scored several hits in return, but withdrew under a rain of shells, leaving Bismarck damaged, but still lethal. The sudden destruction of Hood shocked the Royal Navy and galvanized an all-out chase. Plagued by a ruptured fuel tank and a bow dipping lower with every mile, Bismarck turned south for occupied France. Aircraft from the carrier Ark Royal finally struck a crippling torpedo blow that jammed her rudder and left her circling helplessly on the morning of the 27th of May. British battleships King George V and Rodney closed to within point-blank range and pounded the German ship until her guns fell silent, after which her crew scuttled the wreck to prevent capture. Even as she sank beneath the waves, Bismarck had absorbed hundreds of heavy shells and multiple torpedoes, proof that her armor scheme could outlast the full fury of modern gunnery when allowed to stand and fight. Although her career lasted barely 9 days, Bismarck's dramatic victory over the Hood and the epic pursuit that followed cemented her legend. She demonstrated the lethal effectiveness of German fire control and gunnery, validated her hull's seakeeping in North Atlantic weather, and forced the Royal Navy to divert massive resources from convoy protection to neutralize a single raider. Her loss also underscored the decisive role of carrier aircraft and combined arms tactics in the new naval reality. But the ship's brief record still stands as one of the most spectacular, if tragic, campaigns ever waged by a battleship. Number 2, IJN Yamato. Launched in December 1941, Yamato was the pride of the Imperial Japanese Navy and the largest battleship ever to sail. She weighed more than 70,000 tons in battle trim, carried 9 18.1-inch guns that could lob shells the weight of a small car 26 miles, and wore armor up to 16 inches on the belt and 25 inches on her turret faces. Despite that bulk, she could still make 27 knots and had the range to steam from Japan to the Indian Ocean without refueling. The idea behind Yamato was simple. No foreign battleship could equal her firepower, so she would dominate any surface duel she entered. In practice, she saw little opportunity to use that brute strength. Her sole brush with a traditional battleship engagement came during the Battle of Samar in October of 1944, when she joined the center force that surprised a handful of American escort carriers and destroyers. Yamato fired at long range but scored no confirmed hits before aggressive torpedo attacks and constant airstrikes forced the Japanese column to retreat. By the spring of 1945, the war had moved to Japan's doorstep, and fuel shortages kept Yamato idle. In April, the Navy sent her on a one-way charge toward Okinawa under Operation Tengo. The plan was for Yamato to beach herself, become an unsinkable gun platform, and fight until destroyed. She never got the chance. Waves of United States carrier aircraft descended on the task force, and despite frantic maneuvering, Yamato was overwhelmed. Most accounts credit about 10 torpedo hits and 8 heavy bombs before the massive explosion in her magazine split her in two and sent her to the bottom, taking more than 3,000 crewmen with her. Yamato remains a marvel of naval engineering, unmatched in gun caliber and armor thickness. Yet her story highlights the fading supremacy of the battleship in an age dominated by air power and radar-directed carrier groups. She soaked up punishment that would have sunk any contemporary rival long before, but she never fulfilled the decisive surface fleet role for which she was built. Number 1. USS New Jersey, BB-62. New Jersey joined the fleet in May of 1943 as the second of the Iowa class and immediately impressed sailors with a blend of speed, protection, and hitting power that no other navy could match. At nearly 3 football fields long, she could sprint at more than 32 knots, yet her sloped armor belt and 19-inch turret faces gave her the resilience of a far heavier ship. Her 9 16-inch 50 caliber guns fired faster and flatter than previous American rifles, with a dense ring of dual-purpose batteries that latest SG and FD radars let her swat down aircraft and direct fire accurately in any weather. Admiral Raymond Spruance selected New Jersey as his flagship for the 5th Fleet during the Marshall's Campaign, and she spent the first half of 1944 covering carrier strikes at Kwajalein, Eniwetok, and Saipan. During the Battle of the Philippine Sea, her gun crews helped turn the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot into a rout by adding heavy anti-aircraft fire to the carrier screen. New Jersey's flag quarters then hosted Admiral William Halsey as he took command of the 3rd Fleet for the Formosa raids and the Battle of Leyte Gulf. When Japanese aircraft torpedoed the carrier Princeton and damaged the cruiser Houston, New Jersey closed in to shield the cripples, filling the sky with flak that pilots later described as flying through glowing forests. Through early 1945, the battleship bombarded Iwo Jima, pounded Okinawa, and shelled industrial targets in Kyushu, often within sight of the home islands. She rode out 2 typhoons, spraying arcs of green water across the forecastle, yet suffering only minor dents. By VJ Day, New Jersey had earned 9 battle stars, tying with her sister Iowa for the most awarded to any United States battleship, without once taking serious damage or losing a man to hostile fire. Her sustained pace of operations, her role as command ship for both major Pacific Fleet commanders, and her perfect record of victories without losses make her the most impressive battleship of World War II. From France's Richelieu, a clever treaty-era design that fought in 3 oceans and lived to tell the tale, to the indomitable USS New Jersey, which steamed through every major Pacific campaign without a scratch, each of these ships shows a different solution to the same wartime equation. South Dakota proved that a compact hull could take brutal punishment and keep firing. Bismarck demonstrated how a single raider could force an entire navy onto the defensive, even as aircraft ultimately decided her fate. Yamato stood as the ultimate expression of gunned-up dominance, only to be undone by the air power that had eclipsed the battleship's reign. Yet it was New Jersey's blend of speed, firepower, protection, and an unbroken string of victories that crowns her the best of the best. Their stories chart the twilight of the big gun era. Even while they bombarded shorelines and shielded carriers, every salvo they fired was a reminder that the future belonged to the airplanes overhead. By the time peace arrived, battleships were already yielding pride of place to flat-decked sisters that could project force far beyond the horizon. Still, the legend of these steel leviathans endures, not just in tonnage and turret caliber, but in the courage of the crews who served on them and the pivotal moments they shaped on the world's oceans.